Okay, have you ever noticed that really sharp, stinging smell? Maybe near a livestock farm
Yeah.
or, even dealing with a particularly ripe diaper pail?
Yeah, the specific smell, that's ammonia.
Exactly. And today we're diving into ammonia, not just the smell, but what it actually is as a naturally occurring compound.
Right. It has some really surprising uses, actually, and also potential health implications. We're basing this on information from the Oregon Department of Human Services.
Yeah, we've been digging into one of their technical bulletins, specifically looking at ammonia and, well, water.
So our mission, really, for you listening, is to get a clear, concise picture.
Hmm.
What is ammonia? Where is it from? How does it affect us and the environment?
And crucially, what are the standards for it in drinking water? Or maybe lack thereof.
Let's start there, then. What exactly is ammonia, chemically
Good
speaking?
question.
So fundamentally, it's NH3. That's the chemical formula. But the Oregon DHS bulletin points out that in water, it's often in related forms,
Related forms, like what?
like the ammonium ion or ammonium salts. And interestingly, water test reports, they often just lump these together and talk about ammonium nitrogen.
Ah, okay. So it's not just one single thing in the water.
Yeah.
That's useful. Where does it all, originate?
Well, the bulletin stresses it's naturally occurring. It comes from the decomposition of proteins, basically.
Decomposition.
Yeah, think manure, urine breaking down,
Yeah.
other nitrogen compounds decaying. That's where the ammonia gas is released.
Which brings us right back to that smell from farms and, well, diapers. It's that breakdown process releasing the gas.
Precisely. That's the direct source of the odor. But beyond that smell, it has a surprisingly wide range of uses.
Okay, yeah, this is where it gets interesting for me. Because my first thought is always household cleaners.
And you're right. Ammonia solutions are great for cleaning hard surfaces. Glass, counters, floors, lots of cleaners use it.
But there's more to it.
Oh yeah, much more. It's absolutely vital for plants as a nitrogen source. So it's a key ingredient in like almost all fertilizers, natural or synthetic.
Right, fertilizers make total sense. Nitrogen for plants. What else?
Industrially, it's used as a refrigerant gas,
Hmm.
keeping things cold on a large scale.
Didn't know that one.
And it's also big in chemical and pharmaceutical manufacturing. It's like a basic building block for other stuff.
Wow. Okay. Fertilizers, cleaners, refrigerants, pharma. That's quite a spread.
And here's something that surprised me a bit from the bulletin. Sometimes tiny amounts are actually added to drinking water.
He added, why?
Usually less than zero point 0.4 milligrams per liter, they say. It's to help chlorine disinfect more effectively. Makes the disinfection last longer in the pipes.
Huh. Deliberately adding it in small doses.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happens to ammonia out in the environment generally?
Well, like I said, it dissolves really easily in water.
Mm.
Very soluble, so rain washes it out of the air pretty effectively.
And into the soil.
Exactly. And in the soil, plants soak it up. They need that nitrogen to make proteins.
But I remember reading something, too much isn't good.
Definitely not. It's essential. But too much ammonia in soil or water can actually be toxic to plants.
Yeah.
Kills them,
Right.
right? And because it dissolves so well, if there's an excess in the soil, it can seep down, leach into the groundwater,
Which could then end up in wells, potentially?
potentially, yeah. And the bulletin also mentions that in the soil, or even after it gets into groundwater, ammonia can change. It can convert into nitrates and nitrates.
Okay. And those have their own health concerns.
We certainly do, especially nitrates in drinking water. It's another layer to consider.
So this stuff is pretty much everywhere. How does it get into us, into our bodies, and how do we handle it?
Well, we're exposed to low levels pretty much daily.
Mm-hmm.
Air, water, food. It's just around.
Okay.
The Oregon DHS estimates the average adult takes in about 18 milligrams a day just from food and drinks.
18 milligrams. Doesn't sound like a huge amount.
Relatively speaking, no. And what's really key is that our bodies actually make ammonia too.
We make it.
How? It's a natural byproduct when we digest proteins. Breaking down protein creates ammonia.
So it's normal then, part of metabolism.
Yeah, exactly. And normally, our bodies are really good at dealing with it. The liver steps in, converts excess ammonia into urea.
And then we just excrete the urea in urine.
Precisely.
Yeah.
System works pretty well for typical amounts.
Okay, so our bodies can handle the baseline. But what about higher concentrations? What are the health effects then?
It really depends on the concentration and how you're exposed. In the air, it's mainly an irritant.
irritates.
Burning eyes, nose, throat, lungs, even at fairly low levels.
Mm.
But if you get above, say, 100 parts per million in the air, that can cause serious tissue damage.
Ouch. Okay, that's air. What about in water?
Well, it's quite toxic to fish and aquatic life, even below 1 milligram per liter. They're much more sensitive than we are.
And for humans drinking it.
The immediate effects at lower levels aren't as dramatic. But the bulletin does say that long-term ingestion, drinking water with over 1 milligram per liter, may potentially damage internal organs. Note the may and long-term.
Right, so potential risk over time with elevated levels. What about really high concentrations, like you might find?
In concentrated solutions, yeah, if you get over 1,000 milligrams per liter, it can cause really severe burns. Skin, mucous membranes.
Yeah.
It's corrosive stuff at high strength.
Which brings us right back to those household cleaners. You can definitely smell the power there.
Absolutely. Those cleaners can be anywhere from, say, 3% to maybe 30% ammonia, and they are seriously hazardous if swallowed.
How hazardous?
The bulletin gives a stark warning. Just 1 teaspoon of a 10% solution could potentially be lethal if ingested.
Wow.
And even getting it splashed in your eyes, that can cause blindness, temporary or permanent. It's potent.
That really puts it in perspective. Handle with extreme care. Okay, let's shift to drinking water standards then. Is there an official limit, like an EPA rule?
That's the surprising part, really. The U.S. EPA has not set a federal maximum contaminant level, an MCL, for ammonia in drinking water.
No federal limit. Seriously, given the potential issues.
Nope, no federal MCL. The bulletin doesn't really explain why, but it does note there are environmental limits for ammonia in surface water, like rivers and lakes.
And those vary.
Yeah, quite a bit, from 0.25 up to maybe 32.5 milligrams per liter, depending on the state, how the water's used.
So states have their own rules for surface water. What about drinking water recommendations?
Well, the National Academy of Science recommended a drinking water standard of 0.5 milligrams per liter, and the bulletin says many European countries actually use that level.
So 0.5 mg/L is a common standard elsewhere.
It seems to be. And the EPA itself, back in 1990, issued a lifetime health advisory level of 30 milligrams per liter.
30. That seems much higher than the 0.5.
It is. But remember, that's an advisory, not an enforceable regulation. It's the level they thought wouldn't cause problems over a lifetime.
Okay, so no federal rule, but recommendations exist and an advisory level. What if someone does find high ammonia in their well or maybe a small water system? Can you even remove it?
It's tricky. The Oregon DHS actually suggests that for individuals, sometimes the easiest thing is just to find a known safe source for drinking and cooking water, if possible, like bottled water.
Instead of trying to treat it, why?
Because, as we said, it dissolves so well. Conventional treatments, like basic filters or trying to precipitate it out, they just don't work well for ammonia.
So boiling doesn't help much either.
Heating might get rid of some of the free ammonia gas, yeah, but not the dissolved stuff, the ammonium ions, which are usually the main form in water.
So what does work?
There are effective methods, but they tend to be more complex and potentially expensive. Things like ion exchange, distillation, reverse osmosis.
Okay, those sound like serious treatment systems.
They are. And they need proper setup, monitoring, maintenance to work right. The bulletin really emphasizes that if you do go for a treatment system,
Yes.
make sure it's certified by the NSF, the National Sanitation Foundation, specifically for ammonia removal.
Good tip. Certification matters. And they also suggest contacting the state drinking water program for advice.
Always a good idea. They can provide specific guidance.
Okay, so wrapping this up. Ammonia is, well, it's complicated, isn't it? It's natural and essential in some ways, widely used.
But also potentially risky, especially at higher concentrations, whether in air or water. It's got that real dual nature.
Right. And we've seen our bodies handle low levels, but higher amounts can irritate or potentially cause harm over the long haul.
And the whole regulatory picture for drinking water in the U.S. is, let's say, nuanced. No federal MCL, but various recommendations and state-level things.
And removing it isn't simple. It takes some pretty specific, potentially costly technology.
Definitely not straightforward. It really makes you think, though. Nitrogen is everywhere, cycling through all these forms.
Yeah.
What other seemingly common compounds out there might have these kinds of hidden complexities, these unexpected impacts on our health or the environment that we don't always think about?
That's a great point. What questions does this whole ammonia discussion raise for you about, say, the water quality right in your own community? Something to ponder.